Welcome to All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
And I'm Angie.
And this is Praying Mantis. We are, again, going outside our comfort zone. I mean, we are two scientists and we are mammalian biologists. But we've done some invertebrates now at this point.
Dare I say, each one gets a little bit better. The data, the research, the facts, the physiology is a little easier to digest each time for me, which means I can spend more time on the fun facts and the cool adaptations. So I don't know. I like it, Chris. We need to do more bugs. But yes, the goal for Chris and I today is to share all these fabulous facts about praying mantises, which include their name. They're technically just mantises, but they're known for their signature like prayer stance, which is how they got their nickname. But there's over 2,000 species, which was funny when Chris and I were trying to pick out which species we should cover. So we're doing a sweeping overview of the mantis, but I will keep saying praying mantis, so just know that. But it's one of the most cool and fun looking insects out there, right? It's a favorite at my house. I know that this podcast is dedicated to a favorite in your house, right?
Yes, this one is out for Pippa, my better half, my incredible partner who every year for her birthday requests a species. And last year was the dove for our baby Noah, because that was his dedicated episode. So we did our research for him. But this year she's like, "Can you do praying mantis?" And I said, "Oh, babe, okay, hold on. I've got to check the other half of the podcast, the better half of the podcast." And I said, "Angie, are you ready to tackle this species for her?" And we are. And
yes,
she deserves it. She deserved the many hours of research it took for this podcast.
Yeah, it was a great suggestion. Yeah. I'm super happy because I learned a lot. It did take a while for us to get it to you, Pip, so I do apologize for that. But I learned a lot along the way. And I think for those of you out there that aren't fans of the mantis, please listen to this podcast, share it with your friends. You will be after this podcast today. I guarantee it. I mean, the praying mantis is almost on every continent on Earth. And so most people are familiar with one of the 2,400 species. And they come in all different shapes and sizes and colors and camouflage schemes. They're just incredible. And their look is fantastic. I'm going to talk all about that. They'd be big eyes that are triangular in shape and different colors. And of course, we'll dive into one of the fun facts about, do female mantises eat their male love interests? So
yes, let's just get to the chase on that one. It's
no, you got to stay tuned for that.
Brutal.
Yes,
they're brutal. They're brutal.
Yes, John and I, we probably was about an hour discussion because he kept asking really good questions when we were finding out some of the answers. And so, yes. And I have to give a big shout out to one of my dear best college buddies, Mary, because many moons ago when we were in Michigan State for Halloween, we all dressed up as insects, and Miss Mary was the praying mantis. Green face, antenna, all of it. We made our own costumes, and I was the Black Widow. So, and then our dear friend Cassie was a bumblebee. So, but she was inspirational then, and she is now, and so she'll love to know that we're giving the praying mantis all the love and hype it deserves this week for sure.
Question for you: do you have photos of that?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, good. We'll post it. We'll post it on social media. Or now we're on YouTube. That's another big announcement. We have so much good stuff going on. Angie and I have been planning this for many months. We are now releasing all of these on YouTube. You can look for All Creatures Podcast. We have a few in the bank. We just started releasing some the last couple weeks. We intend to grow there. It's obviously small as we started today, but it should quickly grow as the podcast has grown. We're hitting people from all over the world. Hello to all of you in Europe and those in Africa and Asia, South America, and obviously big following in North America and Australia, New Zealand. And as you were talking about that, I was like, they do eat females. Well, we'll get to that. And I'm like, is that why Pippa wanted me to do this episode?
You mean they do eat males?
Yes. If I disappear,
She may have been sending a couple of subtle messages. No.
No, she loves me. It's just
she loves you very much.
Yeah, we do have them here in New Zealand. And so we do have them around my
Yes.
house. We see them all the time. We'll talk about that because generally the ones I'm seeing are the South African invasive praying mantis, which is an issue around the world. Because my question was when we did this, which one? And like you said, there's over 2,400 species. So then we're like, okay, well, we can't really pick one.
I mean, we might in
orchard
the
mantis.
future when we retire, we could do
Yes.
give love to each one of them. But yes,
Oh,
for now,
gosh,
it's
no. Yeah.
or people have a specific species that they really want us to cover. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was getting the orchard mantis. That one is wow, and I'll flash up a picture for YouTube when we're there. But yeah, I mean, only 30 out of the 2,400 species have been assessed by the IUCN. Because remember, there's millions of insect species, millions of them. So being able to get the data, do the studies, and see if that species is in trouble or not is very daunting, especially for our entomologist friends that do this work. But some of them are, and we'll talk about that today.
Yeah, and we'll talk about too how to get more mantises in your backyard because they are very helpful. So yes, it's all about the mantis love today for sure.
Oh yeah, there's just some incredible facts with them.
I just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of reviews that we got on iTunes. Best podcast ever, life-changing.
Awesome.
Thank you, TC060. And then also Hip Hop Boy just said that we're awesome. So lots of stars, lots of creatures. So thank you. Please keep those coming. Obviously, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. We have a Facebook group where we're always posting interesting articles of like what's happening immediately in conservation, good news, medium news, sometimes the bad news, just to keep everybody updated on what's going on there. And you can always contact Chris and I as well, too, through our email or on Instagram. So request your species, show us the love with 5 stars and a positive review.
Always, always, always. Be sure, if you're on Spotify too, because Spotify is really growing. So I know a lot of you are listening there now too. Yeah. And we get those statistics. So thank you very much. All right. Describing the mantis, I mean, I don't know how you prepared for this one. I've got the sizes and they do vary a lot, but let's get a visual description. And for our YouTube followers, we'll post pictures on there of different or mantises. It's not manti, it's mantises. And give you an idea. But praying mantis is one of those just iconic insects. It's just so iconic.
It really is. And I will talk about the general appearance here in a second, but I highly recommend Googling some of my favorites that I looked at over the past couple weeks. There's this whole group called the flower mantis. It includes the orchid mantis, the devil flower mantis, the spiny flower mantis. I had to double, triple check that it was not AI generated. Some of these images, they're not. These creatures are incredible. So please know that I'm not describing those. I'm doing more of the general body structures, but they are super ornamental with their decorations on their abdomens and on their legs. So we're not going to do it justice, but you can visit our show notes and hopefully we'll throw some different species up there. There's also the ghost mantis, which is really cool. Chris is probably going to talk about the glass mantis, which is really small and transparent, but they're grouped as bark mantises, ant mantises, stick mantises, dead leaf or leaf litter mantises. So all kind of based on how they camouflage. So we'll talk more about camouflage as we move through the podcast in general. But just to describe praying mantises in general, they have these elongated bodies and they have a very iconic triangular head, almost alien-like, with really big, prominent compound eyes, which we'll definitely talk about, do some deep dives. And they're able to rotate their head about 180 degrees when they're hunting and or looking at you, which it's pretty cool if you've been up close personal with a praying mantis. And their forelegs are adapted to be like these raptorial limbs with spines on them for grasping their prey, which is just very classic praying mantis with them folded up, all raptorial-like. And the color scheme, like I said, green, brown, there's purple, pink, white, camouflage, just all different colors. But a lot of them will rotate between the browns and the greens and the yellowish in color to blend in with wherever they live. So it definitely varies highly on species exactly what their color scheme and pattern looks like. Most mantises have wings, but some are wingless and some have varying wing lengths and sizes. And don't forget too with our insect species is that they have their body segments are head, thorax, and abdomen. And then the mantis has once again this elongated thorax, which consists of a prothorax, a mesothorax, and a metathorax. So hopefully we can throw up some charts. There's really great graphics, of course, on the internet to just show their different body segments. Because as an mammal physiologist and understanding mammal anatomy really well, they're definitely different when it comes to how they look, right? But yeah, they just have these long legs, and of course, insects have 6 legs overall. So these really big folded up 4 legs, if you will, and then 2 other pairs as you move down their thorax area. So their wings, the ones that do have wings, do fly. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but they're not huge flying insects. It's more to get from point A to point B or to get away from a predator. They're not covering large ground with the different species that fly. So yeah,
They're awesome. They're just such a
they look cool. I don't know how else to say it. Google it if you don't know what we're talking about, but they look cool.
Yeah, they are. We find them in the house. Obviously we put them outside. I don't think I said it to you, but maybe I did the other day. I'm finding the cockroaches in my house now that I put them outside. I used to just squish them. Sorry. It was, but now I realize 98% or 99% of cockroaches want to be outside, and they're so important for leaf litter. So I am removing them. Pip's like, cockroach. So I go and grab it and put it outside. And then the mantis, we generally like to put out on some bushes and stuff that are in our house. And we did have a female, and I can't wait till you describe the egg case, because I find them everywhere. I was like, what is this alien thing?
Well, that's cool. We have a lot of creatures in our house, but we don't have praying mantises. So
we kept her as a pet for like a month, because after they lay their eggs, you'll talk about it, then generally they die.
Yeah, their life cycle's over,
Yeah, we just kept her alive, and she'd fall over, we'd put her back up on the plant, and she'd hang out for a couple weeks, and then she just disappeared, and she just went off to bug heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to love about this insect and appreciate what insects do for us. Now, when you talk about sizes, it's so funny. I did not realize they could be this tiny.
Yeah.
The smallest species, the Bulbia pygmaea from Australia, you were talking about, 1 to 1.5 centimeters. That's like half an inch. The ones we have are the average garden mantis that gets 4 inches, 2 to 4 inches. So these are the European or Chinese mantis. The largest is the giant Asian mantis, or some other species in Indonesia. It can get up to 7 inches long.
Yeah, it's big.
So that's big. That's big. That's a big bug. Now, the females are larger than the males.
They are.
Yeah. So that's why the ones we find generally are the females, and the ones that fly. And I had one land on me once. It freaked me out, because you're like, what kind of bug is that? And then I look, and it was a mantis. I said, those are the males. So
yes, they usually need to travel around more looking for females and that type of thing.
Yeah. Now, in New Zealand, we have a native species, the New Zealand mantis.
Yes, I was reading all about it.
Yeah, and you sent me a bunch of stuff, and they can fly.
Nerd alert.
No, yeah, I love it, because New Zealand's such a unique place on the planet. We've been so isolated. That's why, all the birds, only mammals we had were bats, right? Besides seals coming on land. So the New Zealand mantis was on its own until 1978. South African mantis came in, and they're displacing the New Zealand mantis. So the ones I have around my house are the South African mantis, which are invasive, which makes me feel bad, but I don't care. I'm not going to squish them. They're too amazing. But what you did send me, the problem is the pheromones of the South African mantis is actually attracting New Zealand males that they eat. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yeah, that's where we might have some issues with conservation and some of
Yeah.
these species. And then what do you have there? I know in Florida, we're
I'm
going to talk
so
about
lucky
range
in
here.
Florida. This is why I do the podcast. So big shout out again to Pip for getting me out of my comfort zone. One of my dear friends always said, be brave, not perfect. So that's what we're doing here with the praying mantis. But I'm in love now because Florida, we have several native species of praying mantis. We have the grizzled mantid, which is really cool. It just looks like bark and lichen mimicry that it uses. We have the larger Florida mantid. That's the one that I've seen at my house a lot recently. And it can be green, it can be brown, yellow in color, which that's super cool that they can be different colors depending on where they live. We also have the American grass mantis, the Bruner's mantid, which hold that thought. I bring them up in one of my last slides because
Hmm.
they are very
Okay.
special with how they reproduce. And it has nothing to do with biting a male's head off at all. Okay, at all. So you're gonna want to stay tuned for this one, the Bruner's mantid. And
Mm.
now I'm not. Now I have to find one in the wild here. I didn't.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
I love this podcast. We have the minor ground mantid, the Scudder's mantid, Carolina mantid. But similar to New Zealand, we do have, of course, it's Florida. We have several introduced
Oh, it's
species here, of course. The Chinese mantis, the narrow-winged mantis, the European mantis. So several species. But growing up as a kid in Michigan, of course, I mean, that's where I fell in love with the praying mantis. So I looked it up, and interestingly enough, there are no native species to Michigan, but of course, there's been some introduced species, the Chinese and the European.
right.
So, but once again, I definitely don't kill them when I see them in Michigan.
Mm-mm.
But at least I've learned that they are not native; they are introduced, but they seem to be
Yeah.
doing just okay up
Yeah,
north.
yeah.
And you'll talk about this when we get to where they live. They're doing fine in Michigan. They're doing fine in Florida. So they're very, very uh, adaptable. So the praying mantis can really adapt to where they live. They live in deserts and woodlands and jungles and tropical, subtropical, temperate climates. It's really, really impressive from just a physiology and evolutionary standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, they normally don't live in the extremes, right?
No,
Like,
right. Yeah, like Michigan gets cold.
yeah, I know. Like in the Arctic, we
Hmm.
know, like, I don't know, we should probably do a mosquito one day. Now that we're throwing insects in
Well,
every now
don't
and
get
then.
crazy, Chris.
I know, but I just have those images of caribou or reindeer migrating through those swarms of bugs. And this is the Arctic where half the year it's just frozen solid. So what do these bugs do? Well, they're frozen or underground, and then they in the spring, summer, they're abundant, and then they go back down, which is important for the life cycle of the planet because birds are eating those insects,
Yes.
uh, all of that, fish, it's important for nature. But praying mantises aren't normally there. They're equatorial and then, like Angie said, radiated out to more moderate. Yeah. So to find them in Michigan, I'm surprised when you told me that. I was like, wow,
Hmm.
I didn't think they were that far north.
It's only a couple months out of the
Yeah.
year, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so middle of the lower 48 of the US is their natural range through Central America, down through South America. But again, the southern part of South America, they're not there, the parts of Argentina and Chile. Africa, pretty much everywhere but the Sahara Desert, right? The really deserty regions, not much there for them. But then Southern Europe, all the way through the southern parts of Asia, down through Indonesia into Australia, all around the coasts of Australia and then New Zealand. Antarctica was the only continent that they're not found on.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just so
Yeah,
international. It brings us all
yeah,
together. When we look at why I care about them, there's several reasons from an ecological standpoint of why they're so important to the ecosystems they live in. But from a cultural point of view, they've been around and people just because of their behavior, how they sit still and then their ambush attack and their beautiful big eyes, their colors and their beauty. Many people are drawn to them historically and want to save them and help them and just love observing them. So it really ties us all together globally, I think.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They are very important insects are critical
Mm-hmm.
to life on Earth.
Yeah.
They're absolutely critical. If all the insects died tomorrow, we're done. We're done. Humanity's done. We would die out. We wouldn't have any food. We wouldn't have all the other species would go. There'd be no way for us to survive without insects. They're that important. Praying mantis is one of nature's best pest controllers. They eat flies, which drive us nuts in the spring, summer here. Crickets, grasshoppers, caterpillars, moths, the smaller reptiles, the Chinese mantis in the U.S., which is introduced. It's bigger. They've seen it eat hummingbirds, little
Well, I
hummingbirds.
saw a picture of it eating a
Yeah.
smaller anole,
Yeah.
brown anole here. Mm-hmm.
They're brutal. They're brutal. They're tough. They're tough. But they're super important. So they help balance the ecosystem. They're helping out our crops. Yeah, they're really a good biological pest control.
Yes,
do a
very good,
really good job. Yeah.
eco-friendly, and really important because, of course, like Chris said, they take care of a lot of pests that are in areas where we don't want the pests, like our backyard or maybe our agricultural crops. But then they also are prey for other species that we want more of, like birds and bats and frogs. So they really help maintain this ecological balance that is so critical and has been evolving for millions of years, which Chris, I know we'll talk about when we get to evolution. And so they play a really important part. And some researchers also argue that the praying mantis is actually an indicator of the health of a region. And so if there's praying mantis where you live, that often can indicate that there's a diverse and thriving ecosystem, and it helps support, which of course helps support pollinators and other beneficial insects, which we are in desperate need of. So yeah, go check your backyard, go take a walk in a park when the weather's nice, depending on which region you live in, and send us your pictures if you can find a praying mantis. I know true confessions here. I was just always like, oh, there's a praying mantis. Now I know that I have like 6 to 8, 10 species in Florida.
So cool.
I will be nerding out, figuring out exactly which species it is, trying to check them off my list and using my app iNaturalist to help identify them. So, oh my gosh, Chris, I might challenge your bird nerd to be, I'll be like an insect investigator or something like that, right?
It is fun, isn't it?
It's so fun.
It's fun.
It's so fun. I know you were doing it with the cockroaches. Once we learned all about the different species, do they want to live indoors or do they actually want to live outdoors? Like, was it like 80% of cockroaches really in the world really they want to be outside? They do not want to be in your house.
It was like 98%, 99%.
Well, there you go.
So
fact corrector.
it's the American and German. Those are the ones you can squish. Fine. Yeah. I'm sorry if you love bugs. Sorry. But those are the ones that get into the food. The ones here I have, the Otago or Dunedin ones, they want to be in the wood chips. They want to be breaking down leaf litter. That's what they do. So I used to think cockroaches were disgusting because they would leave their little brown poop on the wall and but now I'm like, hey, come on, little buddy. And I literally pick them up. I have no problem picking them up in my hand. They're so quick. Remember that? Like 0.2 seconds they can detect movement.
Well, and
then I just go and put them outside.
Yeah. And
I feel great doing it.
Absolutely. And similar to cockroaches, because researchers have always been fascinated about how they can survive, how they survive this long, how are they doing it. There's a lot of interest in praying mantis because of their unique hunting skills. Chris is going to talk about their arm strikes and how the type of ambush predator they are. So researchers want to learn more about their vision because it's very impressive and it's like some of the best in the bug kingdom is my interpretation of it. And so if they can learn more about how this works, then we can help more people or other animals or our planet in general. Yeah, their physiological adaptations is just so impressive.
Yeah.
So that's why I care about them, let alone the fact that they're a cultural symbolism for a lot of people, peace, clarity, good fortune, connecting people to nature. So it's no wonder why Pip recommended this species. It's really cool.
Yeah, and you did mention iNaturalist. That's a free app. You can get on your phone, get your kids to do it. My son loves it. He goes out, he's always like, oh, what bug is this? And then even Pip's dad does it. It's hilarious.
Well, and
he does it for plants.
And think about that dichotomy. Like Pip's dad, who's in his golden, amazing senior years. And then my 4-year-old Maddox, they're
Yeah.
both like, he uses it. Mama, can there's a cool bug or a cool leaf. Can I use that app?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good one.
And for scientists, just to say that citizen science, when you tag that, like when I tag my birds, that's why I do it. Scientists can look and we can look at the ranges. So
Mhm.
now if I go into iNaturalist, I'm going to do this year and start tagging all of these mantises around my house. They know this part of the North Island of New Zealand, that South African mantis, maybe there's some New Zealand mantis in there because they
Mhm.
kind of look similar, not
Sure.
quite, but a little
Mhm.
bit. That helps science.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point you brought up. Because I know people listening to us are nature lovers and mammal lovers, whales, dolphins, fish, reptiles. We have tons of herpetologists, obviously the birds. To fall in love with insects. Insects are so important. Just really quickly, the decline of insects is incredibly alarming. That was kind of my focus today, just to give you kind of a big picture. And then when we do the next insect, I can maybe dive a little bit deeper. Multiple longitudinal studies. So this is looking over 30, 40, 50 years. And we know biomass of many of our species is in great decline. That is especially being seen in insects too. North America, parts of Asia, and Europe is where it's a big, big problem. And there was a study in Biological Conservation published just a few years ago that over 40% of insect species are in decline.
That's a lot.
1/3, millions. There's millions of insects. There's the millions of insect species. We say in our tagline to this, and from the very beginning of the podcast, 8 years ago or 9 years ago, when we started talking about doing this, and it was like, okay, how many species are on the planet? And it was millions. And I was like, was that right? Yeah, over 7 to 10 million species inhabit this planet. Most all of that are insects. So there's so many insect species we don't even know about. And they're all in decline, and 1/3 could face extinction in the next few decades.
I'm a little ahead of the curve, but when we get to evolution, these insects have been evolving for millions and millions and millions of years.
Yes.
So the fact that now they're declining at 40%, it's just horrific.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about an evolution because I was a little challenged with doing praying mantis. How did they survive the fifth mass extinction? Which animals did? That's very interesting. Keep that in mind when we get there, because of human activity, you're going to find pesticides, monoagriculture, urbanization. All of that has destroyed much of their prime habitat. This study just a few years ago out of Germany was incredibly alarming. And the title was More Than 75% Decline Over 27 Years in Total Flying Insect Biomass in Protected Areas. This was done in Germany.
Mhm.
So it was specifically just in Germany, but it's in Europe. And they longitudinal study. So in the early 80s, they started measuring it. And then the mid 2000s, they had their data. Yeah. And they looked at the massive decline. So what's going on in Europe and North America, parts of Asia, pesticides and herbicides, especially in concentrated areas, neonicotinoids, those are the big ones that are killing off. Yep. Those are like with the bees, that
Yes.
honeybee decline.
Yes.
That's been alarming. It's been in the news. Well, that's not just honeybees. It's praying mantis. It's all these other insects. But fragmentation, habitat loss, climate change, it's getting hotter. So that is disrupting. We talked about it in the butterfly
Mhm.
when we did the
Monarch.
monarch butterfly. I don't know. I can think of the monarch butterfly. Talk about the disruption where the flowers bloomed because it was warmer. The soil was warm, so the flowers bloomed. But by the time the butterflies got there, the flowers had died. When for thousands of years, the butterflies had been going and the
That
flower,
same spot.
the butterflies have been there. The flowers were there. There was their feeding grounds, and they
Yeah.
did their whole cycle. But now the flowers are blooming earlier and dying. The butterflies had nothing to eat, and they're dying off. the monarchs, and their great migration. Great episode. If you've not seen that, listen to that one. That is a
Yes.
great one. So light pollution. And it's funny enough, in July 30th, I had a young man on, Loris, shout out to Loris in Montana, who was grassroots going around Montana saying, we are killing all the insects, and it is having a bad effect, not just on the insects, but all the things that eat the insects, and then all the things that eat that. So it had an up and down effect on the food web.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question was, because I always thought if humanity died off, the insects would take over. And there's a few species that are doing well. Some cockroaches. I know we talked about some cockroaches that were going extinct because of invasive species.
Right.
But the German cockroach, the American cockroach, because of urbanization, they've done great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great environment for them. They get into our food cupboards. They eat all of our food.
Oh my gosh, they sure do.
Yeah. Mosquitoes, doing wonderful. I go back to Ian's LA Zoo, the Southern Mountain yellow-legged frog, I think it was, where he talks about the valley with no frogs in California, and it was just a swarm of mosquitoes. And then you go cross over the mountain into another valley where there is frogs, and there's not barely any mosquitoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And houseflies, good old houseflies, drive me crazy. Some aphids are and agricultural pests are doing really well because we're destroying the forests and everything, and we're planting soybeans to feed cows. Yeah. I mean, so it's not balancing out, but there is hope. They are building, organic farming's taking more root.
Mm-hmm.
We do know these neonics are very harmful, not just to insects and the environment, but to possibly us. Wildflower corridors are being planted. And just to tie this all up, what you can do, you can go back and listen to Loris. And then on June 18th, I had a great interview with Danae Wolf on her book. She talks about conservation in your backyard. We talk a lot about this, what you can do to help native species in your area of where you live in the world. But, grow native flowers, bushes, trees, everything that's native to your area, varied blooms, go pesticide free. So use all natural type pesticides or get biological control, like your native praying mantis that's in your there. Get a bunch of them, release them in your gardens.
Yeah. Well, and the other part I love, I think John and I do this very well. We just let our yard be natural. And we have areas where it's really undisturbed. Our HOA doesn't love it. But we'll have leaflet, keep your leaves, let your leaf litter add up. That's where they can hide underneath it and lay their eggs. And so as natural as possible makes sense whenever you can. So our front yard is a little more manicured because it has to be so we don't get any nasty grams. But our backyard is wild. So little tricks like that. And it really does help not only praying mantis, but other native pollinators, other local species. So and then you'll get to enjoy them more. And when you do see a mantis in your backyard, send us a picture. But just watch their cool behavior. And if you need to move it, sounds like Chris is the expert in moving praying mantises, but you don't really want to touch it directly. But if you can just kind of get a stick or something to get it outside, and just enjoy them for sure.
Yeah, always very gentle with them. I remember my yard in Florida was wild. It was native. It was great.
I love it. Yes, we just let it go. We let it go crazy, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it needs to be. Other things real quick, support regenerative and organic farming. So if you buy more organic, that's going to promote, right? I think you buy organic quite a bit.
Yes, and I try to buy local from our farmers market whenever I can, and definitely what's in season, right? So if you're a seasonal shopper with your produce and vegetables, that's very helpful as well.
Yeah. Angie already talked about creating wild spaces in your own yard. Light pollution. We don't think about this. We don't think about it, and Danae talked about it.
I like the front light on in front of our house, but I've been turning it off. We don't need it. I've got Rainbow. She keeps us safe. She barks at anything that moves outside our house. So turn it off.
Yeah, turn your lights off, please.
You don't need them.
At night, my office, I'll turn on a light, and if I leave the drapes open, I have so many insects, and I feel so bad. I'm like closing it. I'm
Yeah.
like, I left it open, and there's all these bugs smashing the window. It disorients them, especially
And the
pollinators, like
moths,
certain moths.
and the nighttime
Moths, yeah, moths are
creatures.
critical
And it
to
saves me money,
pollination.
and it's better for the environment to just turn it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
So
Win-win.
there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot you can do to help your insects and your praying mantis. So take those to heart and make some change. Okay, so look at evolution. Again, not our area, but the kingdom's Animalia. So that's a reminder, insects are animals. The class is Insecta. So class is where it kind of differentiates. And, talking millions of species of all the animals. Yeah, it's just crazy. The superorder is Dictoptera. Oh, I butchered that. Sorry, entomologists.
Dictoptera? I think the P is silent. Dictoptera?
Yeah, okay. I'll go with that. That is the it's the superorder, but this is interesting because mantises are closely related to termites and cockroaches.
It might be Dictoptera. I don't know. I can't drop it, but we should have looked it up. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, the order is Mantoideae. Mantoideae. I got that right. 2,400 species, 460 genera, and 33 families. It is one of the largest bug orders, or one of the biggest bug orders, huge. Now, the evolution, and I'm not going through 2,400 species of mantises.
My slide said species a lot.
A lot.
That's all it says.
I'm not going through them all. But Angie was right. These have been around for 480 million years. Now, life on Earth started in the oceans with our fishes and simple organisms in there. Actually mollusks and things like that. The first terrestrial organisms were insects. So 480 million years ago, they start to emerge on land masses, and then they radiate out like they are today to these millions of species. The mantises go back to a cockroach-like insect. So that's where they come with the cockroaches about 200 million years ago. And that's when that bug lived. About 130, 140 million years ago is where mantises emerge, like as the mantis. That's where we start seeing them in, not fossils, but amber deposits, because it's so cool. They have mantis frozen in amber. It's awesome. Not frozen, really. I don't know how you say it. Frozen in time. How about that?
Yeah.
Where they're in that amber. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading that the earliest fossils were early Cretaceous, but there's some from Jurassic. But out of all the fossils, that only 37 are known. This was as of 2022. So there's not a ton that are in amber, but
that's how we know, though. Isn't that so cool? I've seen it. I've seen a mantis in amber. Is the coolest thing.
So cool.
And these early ones had the raptorial forelegs. So the praying, that triangular mobile head, all of this, the camouflage, the mimicry, the sexual dimorphism, all of that helped them be successful. And 120 million years ago, 130 million years ago, to today. Now, my question was, how did they survive the fifth mass extinction? Because what I know from it is when that asteroid or meteor or comet, some think, hit the Yucatan Peninsula, it superheated the Earth. I mean, it was like 200, 300, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius outside. It baked everything.
Yeah.
The only things that survived were able to hide in caves or in tunnels that they've dug or deep oceans. So who disappeared? Because a mass extinction, 75% of all life on Earth dies.
It's hard to
within a span of time.
fathom,
Yeah.
really.
75%. And we think we're in the 6, by the way, as we keep hammering, because
Yes.
we're losing species faster than any other point in history. Even though this meteor smacked into the earth and killed off a lot of species within a week, it still took thousands of years to kill off everything to hit that 75% mark. It didn't happen in a week. It happened
No, it
over a
wasn't
long
overnight.
time.
I think that's a
Yeah.
misnomer. People think that, oh, it just happened quickly. But no, it took a long time.
No. I mean, the non-avian dinosaurs died out relatively quickly. Some survived, maybe for 100 years. They think I've done, because it's so interesting to read about. They think some non-avian dinosaurs survived for like 10, 20,000 years,
Yeah.
but then still died out.
Yeah,
So,
eventually.
but 100% of them finally went extinct. The marine reptiles, 100% totally gone. Amnonites, those are those marine mollusks. Yeah, they're so cool. They all went, and they survived the other 4 previous mass extinctions.
I do.
And that one got 'em.
Those fossils I've seen in a lot of different places. They're so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you can go see them in Florida. I can find some here. The flying reptiles went extinct. Marine plankton, 90% of all species went extinct.
Jeez.
60% of corals went extinct, which is so sad because we're getting there now. 50% of all land plants went extinct. About 40% of mammals went extinct. Because remember, we were all little tiny things underground. Like the ones that could burrow and hide.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that survived. 70% of birds died off.
Yeah.
Insects, some died, some didn't.
The cockroach got better.
Yes, they
It got
did,
better.
because they could. Why they survived? That's what I asked. Because they're generalists. So mantises were small-bodied. They need less food. They can hide in these microhabitats, like I said, under bark, under foliage. That superheated earth, the ones that were really hidden away, could survive. And they reproduce really quick. So insects as a whole were pretty resilient to that mass extinction. So when I said earlier, we have a 75% drop in biomass, at least in Germany, and we know we're seeing a 40% biomass across the planet. Insects have never taken a hit like this. Go back to this meteor hitting the earth, insects shrugged it off and came out fine. Now, because of us and these pesticides and all these things that we're doing, so when I see somebody like a loris, young person going out, grassroots activity to say, hey, that gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of hope.
It really does.
Yeah. And it makes me, I won't buy any neonics. I won't buy any of these products, and I'll use all natural stuff. So anyways, they were able to shrug it off. And it's pretty incredible when you look at their history.
It really is. And that's why diving into like their physiology is so incredible to learn some of the tricks on how they do what they do to survive and live in all these different locations. Because the praying mantis has been around for a long, long, long time. And we need them here for a much, much, much longer time because they're cool to look at and they're fun to have in your backyard. And we owe that to them. Right?
Well,
I think.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Let's talk about it. Let's start. It's fun facts. The interesting thing is mantises live, which I noticed because, like I said, that female laid her egg case and she hung around for a few weeks. She didn't die within days. She hung around.
Ooh, and I do have a fun fact to add about that when we get to reproduction. Well, just a spoiler alert, I'll tell you right now. The females often will lay one clutch, but depending on where you live and depending on what species they are and depending on how healthy the ecosystem is and how healthy of individual they are, a female may actually lay several clutches, like up to 4 to 5 over a period of time. So in your house, there may have been, I don't know if you saw, there might have been later on another little
That's
case,
interesting. So
egg
we
case.
should have, well, she was South African, so South African mantis. So we shouldn't have promoted more of her. But maybe if I put her outside, let's say it was in New Zealand, she would have bred again. But we kept her inside. We thought, oh, she was done. So there you go, Pip. Next time we have them in the house, keep them outside.
And I'll talk a little bit more about that too, because I was curious. Well, how do they do that? How do they do multiple breedings? Do they do one breeding? Spoiler alert, I won't tell you how, but they do just the one breeding. Probably because
Okay.
sometimes they bite his
Okay.
head off. But they do the
Yeah.
one breeding, and then they have staggered egg laying.
Oh my gosh.
So
We have to do
wait for
Black
it, stay
Widow at some
tuned,
point
or
too.
fast forward to the end.
There's so many cool insects.
Yeah,
There's so many
fast
cool
forward to
insects.
maybe the not so kid friendly part, right?
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, let's talk about these lightning fast reflexes, because when I talk of speed, I usually do how long they live and how quick this animal is, or how fast they swim, how fast they fly, blah, blah, blah. Their reflexes, because you've seen it on planet Earth or nature shows, it's a Bug's Life. Like we've seen some of these things. Their strike is milliseconds. 1/20th of a second is how fast they are. That's faster than a blink.
I was gonna say,
And
let's get some analogies going on here. Faster than a blink? How fast though? Like what's a blink?
it's faster. It's faster than a cockroach. I remember the cockroach, they're so quick. Like it was 0.2 of a second or 1/5 of a second or something, how quick they can move. It is incredibly fast. I don't know. It's not speed of light, but it's fast.
No. It's basically 50 to 70 milliseconds.
Yes.
But it's one of the more fast movements in the animal kingdom, and this is when they grab their prey. And then they start eating it right away when it's alive. But it's also much faster, as Chris said, than blinking the eye. That is 1/20th of a second. So, yeah, it's about 6 times faster.
Yeah.
Not as fast as what movement in the animal kingdom?
Praying mantis? Yeah. Oh, I have praying mantis. No, not praying mantis. Mantis ray. Or mantis ray. Mantis ray. Mantis shrimp.
Thank you. Yes.
It's in there. Yes. I had mantis shrimp in my head all day talking about this animal.
Yes. So that's like one of the that's like, just crazy, like 3 milliseconds. So much.
It was
faster.
so fast it created plasma because of water. The water was plasma.
Yes. So just to clarify, listeners, there's plasma created when a mantis shrimp, which is beautiful. You got to Google that or listen to our episode. When it punches to make this sound wave to stun and or kill its prey, the praying mantis insect also moves very fast, but not that fast when it actually snatches up and then pinches its prey and its arm spikes.
Yeah, it's incredible. So my next question was how? How does it do it? These raptorial forelegs, elastic springs. We've talked about this with certain species, and maybe it was in the mantis shrimp episode, but special proteins called resilin. So they tense and they're coiled, and so it stores a lot of energy. So it's like you push a spring-loaded something. I don't know. As a kid, we had spring-loaded guns with darts, or your Nerf guns for your kids. Those are spring-loaded, right? So that has a lot of energy stored. And when the mantis, which Angie's going to talk about their eyes, which is mind-blowing again, their 3D vision, which is very rare for the insect world, detects prey and lets go in its mind, very smart, which you're going to learn about here in a minute. It releases all that energy, and that's how quick it is. And that's like the mantis shrimp. We did the same thing. We talked about it. So that energy stored, and then it looks and lets go, and then eats and grasps, eats their animal, and then kind of winds that spring back up. That's that's nature. That's biology.
Well, and then also it's even more diabolical biology because they have these spikes, these sharp spines, these modified spines on their forelegs to hold the prey in so it doesn't wiggle its way out of these raptorial forearms or forelegs. And basically it impales their food, these like modified spines, impales the food and helps the mantis secure it and then start eating it when it's alive. And then if it wiggles, that makes the spines go deeper into the prey's body to like no struggle allowed, basically. Like struggling is not helpful. So
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, and that's an evolutionary adaptation that has worked very, very well for them. They are, I don't think I mentioned it in the top of the podcast, but they are like one of the best ambush predators like and killers out there. They're very cute, but not if you're their prey.
If I could only convince you to do some more insects, like the trapdoor spider is
Oh,
so
there's so many
amazing.
good ones. Yeah, there's the
Oh, yeah.
exploding ant.
Yes.
I honestly,
Yes.
I don't know. You might not have to convince me too much, Chris. I'm gonna be honest.
I know.
Like there's some fun stuff.
Yeah, well,
Some really different physiology than what we see in the
yeah.
mammalian kingdom. That's for sure.
We'll sprinkle them in every now and then.
Yeah.
Now, to say how smart they are, so this is it's not instinct. They have special visual neurons, and I'm gonna turn Angie loose here in a minute to talk about their eyes, because their eyes it can detect 3D in a 3D space, which most insects can't. So they have these visual neurons that trigger this automatic motor reflex of releasing the hinge to spring the trap of their legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't think, they react. So when the
it's like
eyes,
crosstalk or like almost like
yes,
a reflex.
because thinking takes time, right? Sometimes
Correct.
when we say, you and I were talking about this recording, like, or I'm always, whenever I look left or I'm looking up, I'm thinking, right? What am I going to say? How am I going to get this information across to somebody? I do it all the time. And I notice myself now, especially on video, but see, I'm thinking, right? And that takes time.
And
instead
it's good
of,
to think. Yes.
Yeah, but instead of food, boom.
Sure.
That's what happens. It does it instant. And it's because of these incredible visual eyeballs and
And the praying
cortex
mantis is so cool. I went down lots of rabbit holes. We probably don't have time for all of them, but the summary, the cliff notes of the praying mantis eye is that they have some of the best eyes among all of the bugs. And of course they have those big, gigantic compound eyes that make with the triangular face that make them look very like cute alien-like. But these compound eyes have up to 10,000 for the bigger species, but 10,000 clusters of photoreceptors, which many people talk about it as eyes. So photoreceptor cluster or individual eyes up from 1,000 to 10,000 of them, depending on the size of the eye and the size of the praying mantis. And each one of these hexagonal clusters of photoreceptors are called ommatidia. And these ommatidia are insane with what they do. And the ommatidia create individual images, almost like a pixel on a computer screen, that overall the praying mantis's brain will combine to make this stereo image. And so stereo, I had to do a lot of research because vision is not my area of expertise, even in mammal physiology. It's definitely one of my weaknesses, which is why I love always learning, lifelong learner over here. But the stereo vision is really cool because it's basically how, and this is in humans as well, but like how your eyes work together to help you see how far things are away. So in praying mantis and in humans, the eyes are a few inches apart, and in humans are a few inches apart, and of course, praying mantises are apart but at a smaller distance. But each eye in humans and each ommatidia in the praying mantis, or their 10,000 individual little eye-like structures, sees something different, right? Like if you close an eye, you're seeing something to you. If you close your left eye, you're seeing something on your right. And then if you close your right eye, you're seeing something else on your left. And your brain puts it together in what we call stereo vision. And basically, as your brain interprets it as this 3D visual field where you can see things that are far away and close together. And so these 10,000 ommatidia in the praying mantis do an excellent job at this. Now, it's not quite like humans, okay? So the mantis has a simpler form of stereo vision because it's basically it's a little bit more blurred and it's looking a little bit more for movement because of the prey and what they're trying to catch. And as Chris, probably because it's related to some of these arm reflexes, these springs that are going to grab it. So it's not, researchers don't think it's as clear as what us humans see, but it's definitely what they call stereo 3D vision, which is incredible. and shows us that us humans with our great vision, we're not alone, and there's different interpretations of it. And the praying mantis is killing it, literally using their eyes to kill things in an incredible way. And so it just makes them very accurate when they're stalking their prey and then they're grabbing it. And then don't forget, too, that the praying mantis has this nearly 100-degree head rotation, which if you've ever spent time with a praying mantis in your backyard, you know how they kind of like tilt their head and look at you. But they can really rotate their head, which that helps them maximize their visual field with a stereo 3D vision to track the movements of their prey without moving their whole body. And that's where not only are they a great ambush predator, but they're very sneaky. They have great stalking behavior. And then they have amazing camouflage. So most of the time, wha-bam, the prey didn't even know they were there and they didn't even know what hit them. But pretty incredible learning about these omotidias. And then also, if you look closely at a praying mantis, if you've ever been so lucky, or we can put some images on YouTube or on our show notes, but there's little black dots in each one of the compound eyes, which almost resembles a pupil, but technically it's called a pseudo pupil because it doesn't work exactly like how our pupil or the human pupil works. It basically is the individual omotidia that helps absorb the incoming light. So, but it moves, the black dot will move around, and it's really cool if you can find it on the individual praying mantis that you're looking at, because it does, you just have this, you feel like they're looking right at you, which they are in 10,000 different individual omotidia, which is just incredible. So hats off that evolved millions of years ago, and it's working very, very well for them.
Yeah. And just to add a little bit, they do see in color, but more in a green spectrum. It is believed, and there's ongoing studies now looking at ultraviolet light. So going back to the praying mantis shrimp, which sees spectrums. I remember you and I just dorked out on their eyes. They have the most incredible eyes on the planet. They can see a color spectrum we can't even imagine. And yeah, and
like, what does that even mean? Yeah,
I know. Like
so
there was
cool.
like 17 different, I don't know, spectrums of color or something. It was like we only have like 5. They can see incredible stuff. So they do have good night vision, it's believed. So because they are diurnal, as you're going to talk about, or crepuscular or nocturnal, some species, and so they think they adapt to low light. Yeah. And then they have that head that can go 180, so it's like they can look all around and look for prey. Yeah. So we talked about flying, very jerky, like you said, just getting from point A to point B. They only beat their wings like 30 to 40 times a second, so they're not very efficient. Not like a fly or even a butterfly, but butterflies more, they fly and then they glide. Moths, same thing. But flies like just buzz around like crazy. And then what other special superpowers do praying mantis have?
So many, but I chose to focus on their hearing because it's super fun. Most species of praying mantis, they hear with their belly. So they've got this complex vision, right? But they basically have, generically speaking, to compare it to human anatomy, so it makes it more relatable, that they have one ear in their abdomen. And this one ear is very specialized at detecting ultrasonic sounds,
Okay.
like bat echolocation. And that helps them, especially in the more nocturnal species, it helps them evade predators. So it's just, some people call it the cyclopean ear. It's a very unique way to hear. As you imagine, out of their midline. It's also called their metathoracic ear. And it's sometimes called the cyclopean ear because it's just so unique to what we think of an ear to be. And the ear itself is a little different than our human ear, obviously, but it has 2 tympanial membranes that face each other in this groove on their abdomen, in this midline groove. So it's technically one ear-ish, and it's basically somewhat on the surface and somewhat deep. I went down a rabbit hole of, is it an internal or external ear? Because we do that a lot with our reptiles. Talking about humans have internal ears, but a lot of reptiles have external. So this is a little bit of both, and super unique, and then ultrasonic hearing. So then I said, well, what is that like? As Chris mentioned with the mantis shrimp, seeing in the color ranges that we can't even imagine, I played that game for a little bit. Like, what if I had ultrasonic hearing in my abdomen? Like, what would that be like? And the answer is, of course, well, we don't know because it's not our superpower. But it would be very different than our sensory experience of listening to this podcast right now with what you're doing. It'd be more, the ultrasound is really, really high frequencies that us humans can't hear. Praying mantises hear or detect these ultrasonic transmissions between 25,000 and 6,000 hertz. So us humans can't perceive these tones. But if we were able to, it would probably be more like pressure on our abdomen is probably how we would feel it, I guess, because it wouldn't be like tonal pitches of a voice. But it would be like you're hanging outside, maybe at nighttime, and then all of a sudden you just feel a blast on your abdomen. And then that would tell you that a bat's about to eat you. So then you would flee the area. You would drop off the stick quickly, or whatever however the praying mantises decide to escape. But it's basically would bring a different attention, a different to you of like, okay, something's about to happen. Maybe like a scary movie feeling or something. I don't know. But I just like to try to put myself in the shoes of some of these creatures and what it would be like to feel and detect ultrasound waves. And because you and I, Chris, we've spent hundreds of hours looking at ultrasounds when we were doing a lot of our reproductive technology studies on mares, stallions, and then, of course, I was lucky enough to work with ultrasounding white rhinos, and we've done several cow species. So, but we're like looking at the sound waves, right? We're interpreting it through our vision, our eyes. So I've never thought about what it would be like to feel it. So yeah. Really cool.
That's one of my proudest moments is when your arm is all the way up a rhino. That's
me too.
You can look, you can see, you can Google how to ultrasound a rhino to see what I'm talking about. But I was so proud to see that. They're just, they have so many superpowers, you know, it's just amazing. Now they are carnivorous.
Yes.
The other animals, not plants. We talked about the ambush. I mean, obviously other insects. We've talked about that. We talked about eating hummingbirds. The nymphs, Angie will talk about the different life stages. So when they're little, tiny, they're eating like fruit flies or gnats and aphids and things like that. And then as they grow, they start taking down bigger prey, but like they will eat frogs and lizards, smaller ones, but pretty varied diet, you know. And if you've ever seen them, because I've seen this in lots of documentaries, their little mandibles, they tear and consume whatever they're eating and then absorb it through the digestive tract.
And then, Chris, another fun fact about praying mantis feeding behavior is once they're done consuming their prey, big, small, feathers, no feathers,
so crazy.
They do this darling grooming behavior where, remember those spikes that I talked about, those modified spines that impale their prey? Well, depending on how bad the prey struggled and how long it took for the praying mantis to eat them, the praying mantis grooms the modified spines to get the goo off. So you'll see them after a meal engaging in this 4-leg grooming where they clean their spiky forearms and they will then wipe their mouths and kind of come over their eyes. It's very darling if you watch it on a YouTube video. And that is they're getting their spines nice and clean and ready for the next attack. So, but grooming behavior, we talk about it a lot in mammal physiology and behavior and relationships and things like this. But
Mm-hmm.
and the praying mantis do it just to keep their spikes killing machines. Or I don't know, maybe
Clean.
not killing machines, but at least grasping and
Yes.
impaling machines.
Knives
So,
out,
yeah.
whatever
Knives
it is.
out.
Yeah,
That's right. You got to
they're
keep your
ready to
knives
go.
clean. And you got
They're
to keep
ready
them
to go.
sharp, right? So there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, and again, this is why I love studying biology. I love nature. It's fascinating to think how the praying mantis evolved to where they are today. They are not just dumb. Insects are not just mindless robots, right? They have a nervous system. They do have some, I don't know how to quantify it yet. I don't think we know how to quantify it yet. But it's thought that of the insect kingdom, praying mantises are some of the more intelligent ones, where they do learn through experience. So they can recognize patterns or adapt their hunting strategies. So when we look at their nervous system, obviously they have this advanced stereo vision. I talked about the reactive neurons they have with that, but flight, coordination, camouflaging, or displays that they do, their mating, which we're going to talk about, that they do. But what's interesting is this made me think of the octopus. They have multiple ganglia, so that's a bundle of nerve centers. And this is much like an octopus where they control different parts of the body semi-autonomously. So you have the
Wow.
central brain, and then you have ganglia around the body, like the arms and stuff, that act independent.
That's
So
incredible.
it's like they have mini brains running the body, just like an octopus.
That's great.
But they do show, studies are showing that they learn to associate stimuli with food or danger. Like Angie said, they have that hearing in their belly, which is insane. Like, I'm like, how did they evolve that to survive bats?
Yeah.
So they have very primitive cognition, experience-based responses. This is an insect. Nuts.
No, it's
Nuts. All right. So what else? What behavior? What else? That's insane.
of course with the praying mantis, I really love some of their anti-predator displays. So when a praying mantis is threatened, it'll basically perform this dymatic display, which is a startle display. It comes from dymatic, if I'm saying that right, comes from the Greek word to frighten. But it includes like flashing their wings, curling up their abdomen. A lot of photos you'll see like on Google has their abdomen curled up. And this is to help startle predators and to threaten them. They'll open their forearms to look bigger and scarier, which, well, their forelegs, I shouldn't say arms technically, but their forelegs are scary because of those spikes and they are big and long. So it makes them look a lot bigger, and they're brave. There was several videos of I saw them basically standing up to pets and humans, just like punching at a dog's nose every time it sniffed at it. So they definitely have some of these anti-predator displays, and they're trying to startle or look bigger and tougher to the predator so that they live. And now, as we mentioned a little bit in the podcast, they're not a social insect. We think of our bees and our ants as colonizing insects. Praying mantis are typically spend their time alone unless they're coming together for breeding. They're a solitary insect, but they will interact for breeding. And their communication, they don't make vocalizations like if you think of a cricket. They're not known to do anything like that, but they do rely a lot on their visual signals to one another and to, of course, predators that they're worried about for avoidance. They will communicate through pheromones as well, especially during reproduction. Yeah, just really fun to just, like I said, just watch in your backyard and see how strategic they are to move their bodies slowly and in such a way that they stay camouflaged. And I mean, because a lot of them evolved to have this natural color or leaf-like arms if they're like one of the leaf litter mantises, but they also can blend in from whether it's more of a green or more of a brown color. And that master of camouflage to me is just a whole nother podcast for a different day. I didn't,
Mm.
we can't get into all of it at this point. We might need to pick one species to do, like the orchid or the ghost. Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
ghost mantis is crazy. It looks like a whole bunch of dried leaves, like a bouquet of just dried leaves, green or brown. It's just the detail, and its arms are incredible. Arms and legs are incredible. For Chris and I, we're mammal behaviorists, and we love watching mammals just do whatever they do. But I think that translates to insects as well, because I spent a lot of time watching Praying Mantis videos the past couple weeks. So once again, thank you to Pip for that, because it was so worth my time just to sit there and watch them and see what they do. And then as I move into their life cycle, I do just want to give a quick little reminder. Chris and I probably should have covered it a little bit earlier on, but as an invertebrate, the praying mantis has an exoskeleton. And so Chris and I, of course, mammal physiologists, we always talk about vertebrates, but we're being brave, not perfect today, talking about an insect. And so they're not made up of bones. And praying mantises have an external skeleton, which is made up of a protein called chitin, which is strong and lightweight. And it covers their entire body. And so as the praying mantis grows, keep this in mind for its life cycle when I'm going through it, that it must molt. And so it has to molt and replace their entire exoskeleton several times as they're growing. And this is a really cool process for any insect nerds like myself out there. We love to find insect molts. I used to have a tarantula as a pet. That I didn't personally get it, but somebody, of course, got a pet. They didn't want it. They gave me their Chilean rose, and I was also a zookeeper for tarantulas when I worked in the education department in Chicago at Lincoln Park Zoo. So I love tarantula molts; are super cool. But of course, here in Florida, we always look for the cicada molts, which are super fun to find that exoskeleton, and they look like there's the perfect eyes and everything, right? All the legs, all of that. So it is a lot of energy that they do that. So it makes sense that the praying mantis and the little baby nymphs need to eat a lot. And so basically, the way that a molt works is that the mantis gets restricted, the exoskeleton is hard and protective, but it does not stretch. It's very hard. So the insect is confined basically inside that shell. And once it grows too large for the exoskeleton, this triggers a lot of hormones. Once again, the different podcasts for a different day, because I would love to nerd out about which hormones cause this cascade and how they know how to do it. Is it like mechanoreceptors? Is it growth hormone? It's probably all of it. Do we even know? But at any rate, the mantis will break out of its old exoskeleton shell by pulling free. And basically underneath it has a little bit more softer, expandable exoskeleton underneath that basically allows it to expand once the new exoskeleton hardens, depending on how big the praying mantis is going to get. It may need to do that again and trigger that whole process over. So just incredible. We don't see that, of course, in our mammals, our reptiles, or our birds. They just grow. Reptiles do, of course. They do. They do shed. Yeah, they do, but they don't shed
not like that.
No, not this hard. No. Yeah, I mean snakes. I love snake sheds. They're all soft and, but it does include their eyes, so there's some similarities there. But it's just fascinating to me as far as from a physiological standpoint. Chris and I probably need to cover just molting in general, so I can nerd out big time or learn about it.
It's like antlers, yeah.
Right. We all know when we talk about antlers, Angie gets a little crazy because it's just so phenomenal, that rapid growth. I can't even get my fingernails to barely grow, let alone that type of just basically almost being reborn several times. And so for the praying mantis with their life cycle, the 5 general stages will be the egg stage. We'll talk more about that. The ootheca stage, the nymph stage. Chris already mentioned that. That's basically like the baby praying mantis. They look exactly like the adults, but they're smaller, and they eat smaller things, but they're still carnivores. Then the adolescent stage where they're growing and molting, and then the adult stage where they're typically reproductively active. And so when they are in the egg stage, we'll talk a lot about that when we get to repro. The eggs usually take about 3 to 10 weeks to hatch, depending on the species, depending on where they live, depending on the season. So that stay tuned for that. But when the offspring do emerge from the egg case, there are hundreds of these tiny little nymphs, and they look like tiny praying mantises, just smaller, and they're typically wingless. But the nymphs will molt 5 to 10 times while they're growing larger. So that's and they hunt while they're doing this, but that's a lot of energy and input to making this exoskeleton, to only break it, crawl out of it, to then make it again. It's incredible. The next stage is the adult stage, and that's basically once the praying mantis has reached its final molt. It'll become an adult, its full maturity. It has its wings if it has them, and they are, of course, interested in breeding. So the lifespan, as Chris mentioned, of an adult praying mantis can be anywhere from 6 to 12 months on average, depending on the species, depending on where they live, depending on their size, depending on their nutritional status. So it varies a lot from species to species. But the end of their life cycle happens pretty much after the female lays, typically after she lays either one or several clutches of eggs, and then she will die, and that'll complete her life cycle. And the male typically will pass away after breeding or during breeding. So stay tuned for that.
If he survives.
Stay tuned for that. No, most of them survive. I'll tell you that much. And so if we want to dive a little bit deeper into praying mantis reproduction and courtship, this may be more of a 5-minute part of the podcast. It's for adult ears. I will be using, of course, all scientific terms, but they may be a little too graphic depending on the age. So I'll let the parents determine that. But mating in praying mantises will occur typically during warmer months, depending on, once again, where they live, but that can range from about 22 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. And when the female has completed her last molt and she is her full size, she'll start to emit pheromones. Those are chemical molecules that us humans can't smell, but if you're a male praying mantis, you can smell them. Or as Chris mentioned, where he has his native New Zealand praying mantis and then the African one, there's some crosstalk there, which is not good for the native. So that can be problematic because, once again, these pheromones are individual chemical signatures that help the male find the female. But if it's attracting other males, that can be very problematic. So at any rate, the male, when he finds a female based on her smell or her pheromones, he'll approach her slowly and carefully, and he'll often move in kind of like a jerky pattern. The male praying mantis will often spread his wings to the female to show to her that he comes in peace and that he's not prey, he's not predator, somewhere in the middle. And if the female is willing and ready, there's some tactile communication, and the male praying mantis may actually tap the female on her back before he climbs aboard to breed.
Now, what happens if he doesn't? She's not interested in breeding. Those receptors I talked about, like, it's curious. I'm sorry, this is a curveball, and I'm sure we don't know the answer.
There's no such thing. Go ahead.
Maybe scientists know the answer that study them, but why does her not automatic nervous system go food, boom, and kill them?
Sure. And I think it's probably because of the pheromones where, and of course, I don't know the hormones. I would love to do a whole podcast just on praying mantis hormones because we are that nerdy. But whether it's an estrogen or a similar like substance that she's secreting, that he's picking up on, but then he also probably has, I don't know if it's testosterone, but he has a chemical signature that is a little bit more intriguing to her than a male at this point. Now,
yeah, I know females, like, especially during mating for a lot of species, they won't eat. That's suppressed.
Sure. There tends to be one focus, one very innate driven focus. And so,
but let's just do whales, like humpback whales. I sent you an article today. Sorry, it's off topic, but the eastern Australian humpback whales, and I told you I was there last month and I saw humpbacks jumping. So I can't wait to do an ocean species so I can talk about it. I was like, no way. And I was watching them leap out of the water.
Yeah,
they've made a huge comeback.
It's life-changing to see that, or at least game-changing, yeah.
But they're on their way to Antarctica now, where I'm living, to eat. But then they stop eating and go up to the Cook Islands and other parts of the warmer oceans. There's no food there for them to eat, but to breed and have babies, and mom starves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not unknown in nature, but it's curious. You're talking about it. I'm like, why doesn't she just go out and strike them? But yeah, there's got to be something like that.
There has to be some kind of chemical signature where he says, hey, I'm friends, I'm the same species. And then then nature kind of takes its course from there.
Unless you're a New Zealand mantis, and it's a South African, and she's like, oh, food, done.
Right,
you're
right,
done.
right. Well, now, what we do see in some species of praying mantis, some of the time, not the majority of the time, is this behavior called sexual cannibalism. And what
this
will
is why
happen...
Pippa wanted to do this podcast,
No,
by the way.
keep listening, keep listening. This cannibalism, it gets a bad name. For female praying mantises get a bad name for themselves, or a good name for themselves, depending on how you look at it. But no, all jokes aside, this is not... It doesn't happen as often as it's portrayed. And so research has shown that this sexual cannibalism in praying mantis is not universal, depends on the species, suppression and things like this. I don't think that's seen. I know it's seen in whales. I don't think that is seen, at least to my knowledge, which is limited since I'm not an entomologist, but I don't think that's typically seen in female praying mantises. But what is seen is if the species of praying mantis is hungry, or there's maybe a drought or weird environmental conditions. Now, climate change makes me curious. That's my science brain thinking like, I wonder, with the climate changing, if food is changing, could there be an increase? We don't know the answer to that. But that's just how my brain thinks. In general, it's about 25% of the time. And I don't want to say it's a myth. This cannibalism of the male does happen. But what's really interesting, Chris, this is what John and I talked about because we are forever nerds. So, when male and female praying mantis get together, their copulation or their breeding can last several hours. And during this, the sperm that's from the male is transferred via spermatophore, which is like a bundle of sperm that is put into her body. So that needs to happen in order for her eggs or her ova to be fertilized and for her to make her egg case. Do you think, your quiz is, do you think if the cannibalism happens 13 to 28% of the time, do you think it happens before mating, during mating, or after mating?
I think during something would trigger her and go, okay, we're good. Boom, I'm hungry. Your dinner.
Yeah.
Your dinner.
Pretty much. It's more common for her actually to eat the male before she even breeds with him. And so there's sometimes some bad crosstalk going there, or she's just really hungry and she'd rather have a meal than a mate. But a lot of it is also during. So it's usually never after. It's either before or during the act. But that spermatophore must often pass through before or somehow get in there during this several hour breeding procedure. So my other question for you is, sorry, quiz show for Chris. Yay.
It's all right.
Do you think we see the male cannibalism in the praying mantis after breeding, during breeding or before breeding, more in the wild or when they're under human care, like in captivity?
I bet you under human care. I bet you there's some stress. being
Definitely.
outside there.
You bingo bango, you know
yeah,
your
yeah,
physiology. And
yeah,
for those of you that don't
yeah.
know, Chris is like the stress guru and mammals and mammal ungulates and stuff like that.
Reproduction, yeah, yeah.
Reproduction stress. So I'm sure it's obviously much different to some degree in insects and how all that works. But yeah, that's what researchers think. So in
Mm.
praying mantis, it's about 67. So in praying mantis, under human care and captivity, the sexual cannibalism can reach 60 to 70% of the time. And this is often because females are in a smaller space, might not have the right food, stress, all of that. Once again, in the wild, it's thought to be maybe around 25%, and it depends on how well she's fed and how she's feeling. So,
Mm.
yeah. So now, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Any comment? I'm sure there's
No,
a lot
no,
of comments out there.
no. I just it's gonna be interesting talk around the dinner table tonight
Yes.
on
Well, that's,
the
John and I are just
species
like,
for.
so he's asking all these questions, and I got to give him props for many, many things in my life, which is why I definitely, don't eat him. I keep him around because it's a bad joke. But no, because we do. He's the one that had these good questions. He's like, well, is it during or after? And I was like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, I think the black widow. Anyways, he's a nerd like us. So, but at any rate, they breed. The spermatophore is fast. The spermatophore is passed to the female. After mating, the female praying mantis will lay her eggs in this really cool, and Chris already mentioned it, but this cool protective foam sheath called an ootheca. And this hardens to protect the eggs. And it keeps them very safe because it's thick and nothing can really penetrate it. The female praying mantis does not necessarily guard the egg sac like we see in other species, but it doesn't really need to because it's like frothy foam, thick sheath that then hardens around the eggs. It's really tough and it keeps them really safe. So there's no problems with weather. There's no problems with parasites. There's no problems with predators for the most part. So it works really well for them.
I will tell you, I will jump in here real quick because I had one yesterday or 2 days ago. I had to change one of the gas bottles, like, used for the gas grill, and it laid it on the turn nozzle thing. And so there was one there, and I knew we were doing praying mantis in a couple of days. I said, oh, cool. And so I was very careful, like, not to disturb it. Very sticky. I find them all on the exterior, and that one, she laid it inside the house.
Interesting.
And we actually, because Pip loves them so much, we Googled how to safely remove it because it laid it on our window inside, and I didn't want 400 little baby praying mantis in my kitchen.
The little nymphs,
but you can actually take it and put it on a leaf and glue it.
Okay.
Because it's very sticky. It's very sticky. Like once it dries. So you have to leave it there for a while, for a few days. So, for the New Zealand one now, I'm going to help. If I find them around my house, I'm going to go iNaturalist, start identifying them. But yeah, you can actually transplant it, and we put it underneath a leaf, and we glued it.
Interesting.
And it's in a safe part of our garden. Yeah.
Well, and Chris, what color is this ootheca, this egg case?
Tan and white, whitish egg color, and then some are a little bit darker tan, the ones I've seen around.
And
the
about
house.
how big?
Okay, good question. Say an inch.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think what I could put it in. A peanut, so the U.S., like our U.S. audience, like a peanut. It's about that size. Yeah.
Cool. Well, and once again, this is to our listeners, depending on what species of praying mantis lives in your backyard or near you, their egg case will probably look a little bit different, but it is nice to know that you can transfer them and put them outside where they belong and where they help your garden out, right? And in general, the eggs will incubate. Once again, this varies a lot on the species, but the praying mantis ootheca and the praying mantis's egg case, this ootheca, will incubate for several weeks to months. So big range there, big variation, since we're talking about 2,400 species in general. But it depends on temperature and environmental factors and humidity, all sorts of things. Now, each ootheca, or each egg case, has anywhere from 50 to 200 individual eggs or nymphs that will come from it after several weeks or months when they hatch. And what was super fascinating, though, is that once again, the praying mantis, the female, and often the male, especially if he's part of her dinner during the breeding process, they typically breed the one time, right? They have this short light cycle, 6 months to a year, one breeding, boom, they're done. But what's super fascinating is depending on the species, the female praying mantis may lay multiple ootheca or egg cases, usually 4 or 5 in her lifetime. And of course, me, just the curious mind, I'm like, well, wait a second. She only breeds the one time and then she eats him. How can she lay these multiple ootheca over a period of time, over her lifetime? And there's one single mating event. How does that happen, Chris?
She'll store the sperm, and then we've known that you and I
Love
I
it.
don't remember what part. This is like 5-6 years ago. We talked about a snake that the Immaculate Conception or something. It had a baby or babies, and they were like, how? And it's come to find out that snake, once they breed, the females can store the male sperm for years.
Yes.
Where in mammals, just for general knowledge, mammals, after breeding 7 days max, that will survive in a warm-blooded mammal. But in snakes, metabolism slower. The cell binds to the female reproductive tract, and her reproductive tract will nourish it and keep it alive. Yeah,
it's incredible. So the female praying, the female praying mantis possesses a special organ called a spermatheca, and it basically will store sperm that's received from the male during copulation for a long time. And it allows the female to fertilize multiple batches of eggs over her reproductive lifetime, which once again for a praying mantis isn't super long, but it's pretty cool that then she can over a period of time, she can lay these multiple egg cases depending on her nutrition and all sorts of things from the same father, for the same praying mantis dad, and store that sperm and use it as needed, which is just really incredible. And I would love to dive deeper into that pathway some other time because it's so fascinating to me. It's very brilliant evolutionary step to deal with environmental conditions that may change, weather, nutritional status, all sorts of cool things. It just goes to show when Chris talks about how do they survive the 5th mass extinction, what do they do? I mean, these are some of the tactics that probably help them as well, right? Like, I'm not going to lay my egg sac now because, well, I don't know, it's really hot out or whatever it is. It's just incredible. Now, other fun fact that I learned, I talked about at the beginning of the podcast about this Brunner mantis that is found. Brunner. It's found in Florida. I don't think I've ever seen one. I'm going to go looking for one. Now, to our knowledge, there have been no male species of the Brunner mantis found. It is currently thought, which maybe some of these budding curious minds listening to this podcast will want to grow up and be entomologists and study this. But at this point, researchers believe that the Brunner mantis, out of all these 24,000 species, can reproduces only via asexual parthenogenesis. What?
That's a whole nother. We're gonna have to pick a species.
It's a whole podcast.
We'll have to pick a species that does this.
Yeah, but for our listeners out there, this is a reproduction where females produce offspring without mating. And so in normal sexual production, of course, you need the egg from the female gamete from the mom, and then this combines with the male gamete, the sperm, whether they do it internally like mammals or externally like certain fish species or somewhere in between, kind of like the praying mantis. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, that's cool. I mean, there you go. That was a fun fact that blew me out of the water today after reading about all this this male female dynamic. There's a group that just, I guess, doesn't eat, definitely 100% of the time does not eat the male. So because there aren't any that we think. which is just fascinating. So,
No,
yeah,
that's such a just nature. It makes me appreciate the world that much more
doesn't
today.
it?
Listening to this and listening to you and doing the research. I mean, the conservation. We know insects are in trouble. We've got to reverse some of these trends. We don't know a lot. There are some species that we know kind of are in trouble in certain parts of the world, like Madagascar has a
Right.
very diverse range
Yeah.
of mantises that are in trouble and other hot spots around the world. But overall, I mean, just to to leave you with a happy, warm fuzz feeling to know that you exist in a world where you have a praying mantis is so cool. And it's what organization? I mean, there's not, since we know they're not really in danger, but there are a lot of good organizations
Oh,
out there
for
doing good
sure.
work for insects. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I sent you a whole list of a team from universities that are working on your praying
Mm-hmm.
mantis
Mm-hmm.
in New Zealand. But I
Yeah.
want to give a big general shout out to the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. They can be found at xerces.org, which is XERCES.org. And the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation is an international nonprofit organization that protects the natural world through the conservation of both invertebrates and their habitat. That's what's key right there. They're a science-based organization, which Chris and I are big fans of course. They conduct their own research, and they also work with others to learn more about the species of interest that are typically endangered or are threatened or harmed by habitat loss. So a lot of their key programs have to do with pollinator conservation, endangered species conservation, and of course, for praying mantises, reducing certain pesticide use and how it impacts them. So, for instance, go on their website, xerces.org, follow them
Mm-hmm.
on social media. But I was on their websites just looking around, and one of the first things I saw that grabbed me was this slogan that says, "Leave the leaves, winter
Mm-hmm.
habitat protection."
Yeah.
And
Yep.
this is what I mentioned earlier in the pod about think twice before you rake these leaves, or you mow this grass because you've always done it, or you blow things around to get them out of your driveway. These invertebrates rely on fallen leaves and other organic debris to survive and to have cover and insulation, especially when it gets colder out. So, or for their ootheca, or sorry, especially for their egg cases. So, yeah, leave the leaves. And
That's
we
awesome.
actually, I know, well, in where I live in Florida, North Central Florida, we actually almost have two falls. So we have our
Mm-hmm.
spring fall and then we have a fall. So we're in our fall, and I'm just like, babe, we
Yeah.
don't need to do this. Let's
No. Yeah. No,
no,
it's good for the
it just
environment. Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but I love the Xerces Society, xerces.org, lots of those tips. Follow them on social media, and yeah, just go love some bugs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll definitely link that in the show notes and on the YouTube. But yeah, great job today, Angie. This was fun. Pip, love you. Thank you for all the support. And don't eat me, please.
She would
Since I'm
never.
never.
You have Noah. She needs you now. That's the difference,
I
right?
know.
Like that's
Yeah, I know.
I
I
yeah,
know.
because that's the praying mantis mom lays that Kool-Aid case and then she's out. So
Yeah.
I and mammalian physiologists and us humans, yes,
No,
we
I know.
need
I know.
you.
I'm glad she asked for this one. And yeah, no, thank you for watching or listening wherever you are. Please leave those comments either on Spotify or iTunes. And if you're watching on YouTube, please just always like and subscribe. You hear that all the time, but it really does help us grow and shows that you're watching and listening. So thanks so much, Angie. Thanks for bringing it today.
Thank you, everyone.